So that was part one of a paediatric team's experience, and we're now going to move to part two, and then if it's okay, we'll do joint questions. So I'd like to introduce Joanne Lloyd-Jones and Dr. Jessica Broughton. Jo's the lead paediatric diabetes specialist nurse for Prince Charles Hospital in Cwmtaf Morgannwg University Health Board, and she's got a keen interest in transitional care and was involved in piloting some of the SEREN Connect activities during its early development. And Jess is new to diabetes and using SEREN Connect, joining the team most recently in May 2022. Jess is a clinical psychologist and is excited by the opportunities for psychology to make a positive impact on the lives of children and young people with living with diabetes and their families, and particularly around the time that our young people move to adult services. Both Jo and Jess will share their experience of using the resources and delivering SEREN Connect sessions. So welcome both.
Which button? That button. Yeah. Hello, thank you very much for having us here today. I'm Jo and I'm a PDSN in Prince Charles Hospital in Merthyr, and my colleague Jess is
a psychologist.
Which we're very glad to have, because we fought for 8 years to get Jess, and even in the short time she's been with us, it's made a huge difference already. So what I've noticed throughout the day is quite a few common themes from people's presentations. There's lots of little bits in my slides that were very similar to what Sarah was saying at the beginning, and Jane's experience, and the experience from the Wrexham team. And I think I like seeing these common themes, because I think it makes us feel like we're all doing something along the right lines, that we're all getting the same kind of results and noticing the same kind of things. I keep forgetting it's down there. So a little bit of history and background, and this actually happened before I went to work in Merthyr. So this is a previous PDSN, and the team at the time noticed a huge drop-off in clinic attendance after young people went to the adult service. So they did a young person and parent survey back in 2016, and it scored really poorly in terms of people's preparedness for moving over to adult services. Parents were asked about their preparedness for the young people to move over, and 100% of them scored under 3 out of 10 in preparedness. So they knew they had to do something about it. And these were some of the comments that came up in the survey about feeling lost and out of their comfort zone, and just generally not feeling prepared. So they developed the PCH model, which is very similar to the model they're using in Swansea, and very similar to the Wrexham model. And I'm not going to go through it because it's kind of similar and you've heard it all before, but I just wanted to highlight it because along with the Wrexham model, it was one of the models that was used in the development of the All Wales standard. So that's just a little close-up of the main theme. So it's a 2-year model from 16 to around their 18th birthday. They used to have 5 nurse-led appointments and 2 consultant clinics, 2 consultant-led clinics, but MDT, so with the adult and paediatric teams together. That was usually at around their 17th birthday, the first one, and then their final transition appointment around their 18th birthday, when they're formally handed over to the adult teams. We've had good relationships with our adult colleagues. We've been able to work together really closely. The young people really enjoy meeting the adult team, and it makes them feel much more comfortable when they have that final meeting where we hand them over, where they're saying goodbye to us, but they already know the team that they're going to. So that's worked really, really well up there. And when they did a full year of this process and resurveyed it, it was very much improved. Most of them were scoring much, much higher and felt much more prepared and less anxious about the transition process and going into the adult service. So that's just a little bit about our transition service as it existed then. And then I'll come on to talk about our introducing Connect into our 2-year process and how we incorporated it into what we were already doing. So up in PCH, we were approached to pilot the first module before it came out, before we had anything printed. It was all sent to us and we printed reams and reams out of it on our printer in our office because none of it was in books yet and we were trialing it all. And for that first module, which was late in 2018, we started with the young people who were going into their first year of our transition process, so the 16-year-olds. We invited 14 and we got 8. We were quite pleased with 8, actually. We thought that was a really good attendance. And it was led by 2 PDSNs and 1 peds dietitian. And I actually recall, I think we had a student nurse there as well. We did a 2-hour session, and actually we've continued with that. All our SEREN Connect deliveries, 2-hour sessions, and it seems to be about a nice amount. And we found the icebreaker really good, never have I ever. One of our PDSNs at the time had type 1 and did feel like she shared a little bit too much in the game of never have I ever, and left it feeling a bit like she wasn't sure what was going to be the result of that. She might have shared a little bit too much, but it was really fun. And those of us without type 1 kind of played along as if, how would we be if we were teenagers with type 1? And I definitely sort of said, oh yeah, I would have lost my diabetes kit and I would have had terrible HbA1c and all that kind of thing. So this is how we started to incorporate Connect into the existing model. We are delivering E1, E2, E3 and E4. So we deliver E1 and E2 in the first year between their 16th and 17th birthdays, and we deliver E3 and E4 in the second year between their 17th and 18th birthdays. And we are really pleased that we're able to deliver all 4 modules to our young people during this process. And again, that's done closely with our adult colleagues who attend the sessions as well and do that delivery with us. So it's just more opportunities for them to meet the team and meet the nurses and the dietitians that are going to be looking after them when they become an adult and go over. We completely lost any resources to deliver Connect during COVID. So we lost our outpatients department completely. It was actually repurposed for an early pregnancy service. So we had no nurse-led clinics for 14 months at all, nothing face-to-face. So we couldn't even deliver sort of face-to-face on a one-to-one basis. So we condensed the E4 modules into written A4 sheets. And I wanted to make it really condensed because I knew as a teenager, if something that was pages and pages had come through the letterbox, I wouldn't have read it. So I thought I want to put it in one sheet, front and back, put in there some of the little activities that we do, put some just as think about this and some as actual exercises where I left little boxes where they could write things down, similarly as you would do in a group exercise if you were getting them to write down lists or shout things out for a flip chart, and sent that with the corresponding leaflets that would have gone with that module. And we timed them as if we were delivering the modules. We didn't sort of send the whole 2 years in one bulk. We spaced them out around the timings that we would have kept to the timetable if we were delivering the modules. We lost lots of contact with our adult diabetes team. Unfortunately, they had a huge burden on them from COVID, from steroid-induced diabetes for the people who were being treated with steroids for COVID. And we lost the adult consultant as well. So even when we were able to do some clinics, we didn't have a clinic with which we could transfer them. And unfortunately, they were transferred by letter for a while. I don't think we've completely seen the impact of that yet. And it would be interesting to do a bit of work with our adult colleagues to see those young people that we transitioned in that way, if that's had an impact on them long term. Sorry, I've just roped you into doing a piece of work. That's fine, isn't it? Yeah. So post-COVID, when we were able to restart doing our sessions, we were inviting less, obviously, for social distancing. We probably did overprescribe a little bit. And I think if all 8 had turned up, we'd have had a bit of a panic, not knowing how we were going to socially distance them. But we were getting about half. We've always, in terms of engagement, we've always ended up with about half of the numbers we've invited. We're quite pleased with half. We don't mind half. You weren't pleased with half. We've been quite pleased with half. Maybe we need to aim higher. And we did all the usual COVID risk assessments before they came. We adapted all the resources then. We couldn't do group work. You couldn't split groups of young people into groups to work together. We had to socially distance them. They had to have their own pen, their own piece of paper. We couldn't do any of the sort of activities that involved us moving around the room, but we were still able to deliver the sessions in an adapted way. We sent the condensed sheets out that we still use, that we sent out to the young people who didn't want to attend or who couldn't attend. You know, somebody would have COVID and not be able to attend. So we still sent those out along with the resources. And we continued to deliver it even though we lost our adult team for a little bit. They still had the ongoing impact of COVID. We had lots of redeployment as well, actually, which I forgot to mention. We were redeployed in our paediatric team 3 times over this period. So we were really pleased that we were still able to deliver something to our young people. And whenever there was an impact of COVID, like another lockdown or another redeployment, we would send out the resources, these condensed sheets that we used along with the leaflets. So how has it changed what we do? Well, Connect has replaced 4 out of the 5 nurse-led clinics that we used to do. So we now do a nurse-led clinic with our adult colleagues at the beginning where we introduce Connect, and the other times where they would have been seen in a joint nurse-led clinic, we now deliver it as a SEREN Connect session with our adult colleagues. So they're still meeting everybody, it's just in a slightly different way. We adapt sessions for low attendance and we very much read the room. So as we're going through, we will adapt what we're doing. We'll adapt the exercises if it doesn't seem to be going well. If we get a really good discussion going and we run over time, again, we might drop something out. And we always plan at the beginning who's going to deliver what. So maybe if we feel something's running on while that person's delivering, another 2 of us might be at the back, just adapting what we're doing and deciding what we're going to do next and which exercises we're going to drop out, and it just does work really well. And we always have that debrief at the end where we talk about, right, how did that go? What could we have done differently? How might we deliver this differently next time, just to really improve what we're doing all the time. And actually that's been great having Jess bringing those insights in after we've been using it for 2 to 3 years to come in and give us insights from a psychology point of view and give us different ways of delivering things. The other thing we might think of doing to improve engagement is to try combining these modules. So we have delivered E3 and E4 together, and that's worked quite well. We've always delivered E1 and E2 separately up until now, but we are going to trial delivering them together. We maybe have to make the session a little bit longer, but when these young people have really busy lives with exams and university applications or their first jobs, we wonder if they might rather come to a single session that's a little bit longer rather than 2 sessions throughout the year, in addition to all the appointments they go to, in addition to the transition appointments on top of that. We found Connect really easy to use and adapt. We found it really, really enjoyable. We've enjoyed it as much as the young people have enjoyed it. And we're always quite surprised that even when they're really dry in the room and sometimes they're not participating, they still evaluate it really well. And they give us really good feedback. You know, they're sitting very quietly, but actually they're taking it in and they feed that back to us at the end. In some recent feedback, we said we got 85% scored it 7 or above out of 10 in terms of enjoyment and finding the session beneficial. They all felt they learned something and they really did enjoy taking those leaflets away after them, away from the session. And I've always wondered if they read them, but actually listening to Duke's presentation earlier, I thought maybe they do read them because Duke would have read them. So maybe they do. So I hope they do, because it's such a fantastic resource. And even if they don't read them when they take them away at 16 and 17 and 18, even if they come back to them at 19 or 20, it's still there for them to support them as they go into their adult life. Another bit of feedback is that parents would like a little bit more information. Obviously, that, you know, we always work with our young people. The parents drop them off and then they leave and we say, come back in 2 hours and pick them up. Or the children arrive on a bus. Children, I shouldn't call them children. Or the young people arrive on a bus or a moped. We had one arrive on a moped recently. That was good. But they'd like a bit more, which is something Sarah and I have discussed, and something that Jess, as a psychologist, might start to introduce, where she does a short session with parents or families or guardians or boyfriends, girlfriends, maybe. Yeah. While we are with the young people delivering our SEREN Connect sessions. And we found it really good to have that PDSN in the team who had type 1, and she's no longer in the team now, but that's something I'd like to explore, I think, is to to bring people back, to bring young people who've been through Connect back into the sessions. And I think they can bring so much to these young people who are going through something that they've already gone through. And this is some of the feedback that we had. The two that really struck me were, I liked the fact they talked about stuff I wanted to know. And I just felt from that comment, that was a young person saying, I wanted to know all this stuff, but I didn't know where I was going to find it out. And the fact that we've done that, the fact that we've talked about these issues that they've considered and maybe never discussed with anybody, and that they've taken that away with them, really struck me. And the other one that really struck me was to keep wary that even some of the most normalised situations need to be managed differently. And I felt a little bit sad to think that that person was looking at these normal situations, these normal life experiences as not normal for them. And I also felt really good that through SEREN Connect, we could take some of those experiences and make them as normal as possible for them, try and allow them to have those normal adolescent, young adult experiences. Yeah, absolutely, rites of passage. And we, through SEREN Connect, were able to give them the tools to do that safely, so that they could have these experiences, so that they could go out and drink, but they could do it safely, so that they can go to festivals and they can go backpacking around Australia and things like that. And one other comment I had actually, and one of the things I said on one of the previous slides that I didn't touch on very much, was how we've had new people coming into the team. We had a new PDSN start who actually delivered a section in SEREN Connect on her 3rd day of working in our team with no previous diabetes experience. And we deliberately gave her a section that maybe didn't have much conversation about diabetes, but she was able to deliver it even so early on in the job. So I asked her for a little bit of feedback because she's still with us. She said, the SEREN Connect curriculum was easy to follow. This helped me deliver the session as the information is really relatable to real life. So even completely new in the team, she was able to deliver this section really well. And actually, as a new person in the team, that moves nicely on to Jess.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Jo. Oh, did you want to say anything about the award?
We won an award. I forgot that slide was there. Sorry. Yes. So in the Quality and Care Awards 2020, when Connect won 2 awards on its own, our service in PCH also won an award for growing up and moving on, supporting young people. I forgot that. Sorry.
So as Jo said, I'm quite new to the team, so slight imposter syndrome to be talking about SEREN Connect. But just if it's helpful to have the perspective, I guess, as someone who is new to diabetes, new to the team, new to SEREN Connect. So joining a SEREN Connect session at PCH was one of the first things I did in my role. So as Davida said, I started in May, so it wasn't too long into the role before all of the SEREN Connect sessions were starting. I was kind of blown away by it, really. I was really impressed with the content, the materials, how adaptable it was, how fun it was. That was kind of at the point where we could be doing, you know, post-COVID, where we could be doing the activities kind of as they were planned. And I just thought it was really brilliant. I previously worked in England and had never come across these kind of materials for a specific health condition before. I'm not saying I've worked in every health condition, and I know that SEREN Connect is being rolled out in England, but I just was really struck by how well resourced diabetes is in Wales, maybe compared to some other areas, and how lucky we are really to have these kind of education programs to use. As a psychologist and new to the team and thinking about the psychology service, having really enjoyed the SEREN Connect session, my brain was thinking, okay, so I loved this, I want to do more of this, but is this a good use of psychology time? I would say yes. So in terms of the kind of best practice guidelines for paediatric diabetes psychology, the 3rd kind of guideline is around developmental milestones and talks about paediatric diabetes psychologists having contact with young people at really important times, kind of transitional times in their care. It also talks about our participation in kind of structured education programs. So for me, SEREN Connect was a really easy way of ticking both of those boxes. It's also really great as a psychologist. I join a lot of MDT sessions, but it's a really great opportunity to have contact with a bigger group of young people in a more informal setting. So for them to be able to have contact with me in a relaxed atmosphere, not that they've been referred to me and they've come and they've met me in my clinic room and I'm asking them lots of questions, not that I'm trying to chip in a busy MDT appointment and just kind of make some contact with them. just being able to strike up conversations, being able to have fun, be silly, laugh, but then also use opportunities. So where we combined 2 of the modules, we had a break in the middle. I found the break really useful to just check in with young people. How are you doing? How are you finding transition? Do you know that I'm part of the team? Do you know that I can help you if you need some help? And especially as a new person to the team, it was a really nice way of them seeing me as part of the team, as a normal part of their care. Psychology is not a scary thing, just something that's part of your usual care. In terms of use of psychology time as well, I would say that because it's a date that's set in the calendar in advance, it's easier for me to ring fence my diary. So, you know, we're talking about maybe 4 sessions a year, maybe a 2 to 3 hour commitment each time. I can ring fence that time, and it feels like a really good use of time because I know that I'm going to have contact with young people at that really important stage. All the young people attending are people that I need to be checking in with. Having been really positive about it, you know, I think it's really important to give kind of a balanced, realistic view of delivering SEREN Connect as well. And I would say it's not like any kind of group, like any sort of intervention or activity that we might want to run. It's not without its challenges. I felt very validated earlier when we did the Mentimeter, and lots of people said about admin, because that was one of the first things that I was thinking about. So we actually don't have dedicated admin time in CumTAF to support kind of groups like SEREN Connect, which means that there is a little bit of a burden then on clinical staff. I'm looking at Jo. In terms of just doing all the background stuff that needs to happen for one of these groups to go ahead. For me, that's a real shame because we know from the research that things, as simple things like a text reminder, massively increases attendance at appointments. So for me, admin is a difficulty and a challenge, but something that, you know, in theory, we should be able to argue a really good case for. As we've said before, you know, kind of magicking money up from the NHS is difficult, but that's definitely a challenge. I think as clinicians, and this isn't just SEREN Connect, so whenever I've kind of been involved in group work or structured education, I think as clinicians, we can perceive groups to be quite resource heavy. So there's lots of different clinical people attending. You know, we might not get the number, so we might invite 8 people and 4 people come, and then there's 3 facilitators. So sometimes we can feel a bit kind of top heavy and wonder about that. Is that clinical time best used? I would say that thinking about SEREN Connect, when I was reflecting on this, that maybe there's another way of looking at that. So if I'm in a psychology clinic and I get DNAs, that feels like really lost time. If I'm in a SEREN Connect session and we get 4 out of 8 people, I'm still delivering what I wanted to deliver. I'm still having the conversations with young people that I wanted to have, still making those connections, still doing clinical work in that time. And also then I guess thinking about resources, a bit like what Jo was saying earlier, thinking about, can we be flexible so that that isn't a problem, so that isn't a barrier to us delivering, thinking about overbooking, thinking about having a plan B. So if there's 4 of us and we've got 3 people, we wouldn't all 4 run it together. Another challenge I think that's important to mention, I know the Wrexham team talked about this as well, is that we're trying to engage people at a really difficult time of their life to engage them, but also at the time when they probably need to be engaged the most. So we know developmentally, the teenage brain is a wonderful, exciting thing. It's going through rapid periods of development, you know, almost as much as in toddler years, really. Lots of things are changing. Lots of skills are being developed, you know, planning, organising, making good decisions, deciding to prioritise my health in the future over what I want to do with my friends today. But we also know that that carries on until about 25. So a lot of the young people that we're trying to invite to SEREN aren't necessarily at that stage of development yet. So we should see this as normal. So we should expect there to be challenges in engaging them. And actually, from a psychology point of view, that means that their development is completely on track. Another kind of thing that, I don't know if it's just me, but thinking about what if no one speaks? So groups of teenagers notoriously, or you might have the idea that I'm going to deliver this, what if no one speaks, to what if no one participates? I think, as Jo said, we know from feedback that even the young people that don't participate really actively have still taken a lot from SEREN. But we also all work with teenagers. We have skills at engaging people. So I think that's a nice challenge, really. The young person who's quiet, trying to bring them out, thinking about peer groups, trying to kind of hear their voice, really. In terms of the teenage brain, I think it's an interesting challenge. I think there's lots of opportunities for the teenage brain as well. So thinking about, you know, their drive towards social connection and fun and wanting to spend time with their peers, wanting to do things that are a bit novel, a bit different. So I would wonder how we're advertising SEREN Connect to young people. What would appeal to them? Can we highlight maybe the social aspect of it, the fun aspect of it? The fact that we're going to talk about drinking, we're going to talk about festivals, things that maybe they want to talk about, rather than advertising it maybe to my adult brain, which would be focusing more on, you know, managing your condition well, preparing you for the future. Maybe we need to think about what would young people want to hear. And just thoughts for the future, really. So we're always, you know, in our kind of catch-ups after the sessions, we're always thinking about improvement. We're always thinking about what can we do better. It's definitely not a kind of perfect, we're not there yet. We've still got lots of ideas. I think for me, from my perspective, I think engagement just remains the biggest challenge. I think the next step is to find out the views of young people who chose to attend and young people who didn't choose to attend, probably more crucially. What was the barrier to that? Was it something logistical and easy for us to change, like the time of day? Or was it around how it was advertised? Was I advertising it to my adult brain and maybe not their young person's brain? We've also thought a lot about geography and thinking about combining sites, haven't we?
Yeah, so we are running Connect group sessions now on all 3 sites within our health boards, but we have talked about whether we combine them, try and run them with bigger groups, how mobile are our families and things like that, to see if that's something we can think about in the future.
Yeah, but we'd need to be considerate about kind of, accessibility and things as well, wouldn't we? So yeah, I think that's everything that we wanted to say very quickly, probably.
It's lunch next.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
Please don't sit down. Jane, could you come back? And the floor is open for a few moments of questions. I've got a question for both Joe and Jane. Joe, please could you share your leaflets, your A4s, and Jane, please could you share your invitation letter? Yeah, sure. Thank you.
See, no one's going to ask a question because it's lunchtime.
No.
Food. Thanks. As I'm the dietetic lead within Ordig, so thank you for Sarah for inviting me and asking me to come along. It's great to hear everybody's experiences and sharing them. I think that's the key for this, and this is what the day's about, isn't it? Mine was a comment really for Nessia, that's exactly what I wrote in my book, that whilst the Ordig are developing the Diabetes Wales website, we have a central resource hub for all these amazing letters, information sheets, so we're not constantly emailing to the whole world and his mother. And I think that's and QR codes, everything that we could, that we've got that central place to share all this great work that you're all doing. But agree, you were just saying about venues. I've been in the adult world of type 2 diabetes education delivered expert for longer than I care to remember, and have loved every day of it. But yeah, finding a nice room with comfy seats and lots of parking is definitely a must, and preferably not any hospital sites.
Hi, I'm a diabetic nurse and adult, but we're hoping to roll out the SEREN Connect now, transitioning between our paediatric team and ourselves then to share. But I'm just wondering if any of you did any remote sessions as opposed to face-to-face, and was there any better turnout from either or?
We didn't, because our IT is notoriously bad in our health board, as anybody who's been in any meeting with me would know, but we weren't allowed to use things like Zoom in our health board. They wouldn't allow us, so it's not something we could even consider really, which was a shame. But that's why we sort of did a postal thing, just so there wasn't a complete gap. It wasn't a great service, but they just saw it, there wasn't a complete gap.
Yeah, we actually started it on Teams, and a lot of the families were used to using Teams for clinics during the pandemic. And they were good and bad, actually, because it meant all of us are getting used to using Teams now. You have to wait for people to speak. So it meant that people could take their time and have their little bit to say. And there were great things about it for teenagers, actually, because it meant they weren't in a big room with people they didn't know. And as the facilitator, you could say, right, have you got something to say there? Because you knew these young people really, really well. So we've learned, although we're going to do it face to face from as much as we want, because that's what they've said they'd like, there are some young people that have asked, oh, can you do it virtually? Because actually, I suffer with, all sorts of things, from autism to kind of, fear of being in big groups. So it definitely worked.
I'm from Hywel University Health Board, and we've started using the DigiBeat app, but we're hoping to start using the DigiBeat app. So I don't know if everyone's aware of it. It's an app for people type 1 diabetes transitional age. Is there any scope to maybe put some of these SEREN resources on the DigiBeat app so that when the young people need the information that they can look at it then, or is it going to stay solely as a hard copy resource?
I guess.
Yes.
Sarah, that's for you.
They got away with the question over there. Yeah, so just to go back on the virtual resources, it's not quite an app yet, but what we did, because a few teams from NHS England and Guernsey and Jersey have all bought it off us, we've got a bit of financial issues that we got to spend the money we make within the same year. So from the money we made, we have put money towards having a virtual slide deck to go with the virtual slides. I know it's not quite an app. What I'm really struggling with is just getting people to say, yeah, this looks good or this doesn't or whatever. So again, please put your name down with Nessia if you're interested in just seeing them. You're not even committed to time yet. If you just think you can have a quick look and tell me how we can divide it between us, but I just need people that want more of this. And if people then down the line start saying, we need X, Y, and Z, we need this, I need this to come from you, because that's where the power lies. So in terms of DigiBeat, I think there is a way that you can, so I've got digital copies, and you'll also, if you look at the back of your delegate pack today, there's QR codes which takes you to the collaborative website. It is a work in progress, but you can look and you get access to all of the apps on the brain, all of the booklets. So from today on, you'll have them as a digital copy. You can download them. I think you can send them out, like you can create a post on DigiBeat and send them out. And that links into what I said at the beginning with, look at your 12-month calendar, pick a booklet of the month, particularly if there's topics that relate. Yes, you can. And you can put the link then to that. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Again, I think it just takes a bit of getting used to and trialing it. And it's a very different way to work into how we would be working 10, 15 years ago. And sometimes that can also be a bit, sort of thing. I don't know if anyone else got any comments from the team on virtual stuff.
No, we dropped off using the app a little bit. That we're as a team, we're trying to get back into it now and use more social media and things like DigiBeat to advertise things like Connect. Yeah, that we're trying to get it up and running, but we haven't got it running yet.
Any more questions? Yes.
Hi. With the people who didn't come, obviously you look into different reasons why, but has it actually helped you identify the people who really need it, are going to be hardest to reach because they've got some bigger issues, but actually it means that they stand out a bit more during the transition process because they haven't come?
Yeah, and then we just try and do something individually with them. Just try and get them in for an individual appointment, even if it's just in a nurse-led clinic, to talk about things that are specific to them. Yeah, so for some people it might be a learning difficulty, for other people it's just the anxiety of working in bigger groups. So yeah, send the resources out to them, and I just try and do something with them individually then, just to see what they need, but to recognise that they struggle with that in a group.
Yeah, for us, things are always changing. We're always learning. So currently we're going ahead with E1 tomorrow, and it's face to face. And some of our young people have said they're not coming, and the reasons are really interesting. So for about 2 or 3 of them, it's because their parents won't bring them. And that was really interesting for us, because we were pushing it to the young people. It's really valuable. It's going to be really great fun. You're going to get loads from it, but perhaps we need to push it for the parents as well. So yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah.
I think the other thing I've really looked at recently for the people who aren't coming, and this is more general, this is not specific things within their life or their personality or their struggles. Some of the sessions haven't been well attended because I've timed them really badly and tried to sort of lay out this timetable through the year when actually I've ended up booking sessions that are right in the middle of exam time or right, you know, things like that. And I think that's down to me, and that's down to my learning and thinking, right, find out when the exams are, don't timetable anything for that time of year, and just spacing it a little bit better, because for most of our young people, their reasons for not coming are things like, well, I've got an exam, or I've got a job interview, or I've just started working, or, you know, I don't get that many who say, well, I just don't want to. So yeah, timetabling issues, I think, but that's down to us and just organising it, which would be good if we had admin.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that's the difficulty and challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hi, me again. You mentioned venues. Was it, you said you having it in a hotel tomorrow? Who pays for that? Oh, is it the funding?
Yes. Applied for funding. I think Heather sent out stuff over the summer and we applied for it. It was a really easy form to fill in. And we asked for funding to funding events and food and the Mentimeter. And we've managed to get funding for that, and we've got the same then for our E2 session in March. So
taking things forward, is that what you plan to do? Always hold it in a hotel, or, you know, I'm just thinking, I was going to say for long-term planning then, I suppose with this, it's been a case of that would be lovely to set it up, but then thinking of if we're trying to keep it out of the hospital setting, what venues are we looking at?
Yeah, we looked at those venues to see if we can get any free. We've held sessions in the past where some community centres have given us space for free, but we wanted a large venue and the funding was there. We wanted to make it a big dazzling event, so we did it. But you're right, in the future, if we haven't got funding, there are places in the community that you can go to, and if you say you've got them through the NHS, you can get actual endowment funds for, and for, you know, so we'll probably do successful.
Right.
And
I used to work in Aston and Broughton.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of the supermarkets do have a function room. Tesco's do, and Morrison's, other supermarkets are available, but they do have function rooms which are free for this sort of thing. Yeah,
I think our big Tesco's down the road has got a community room, hasn't it?
It does. Yeah.
Where did you guys hold your sessions?
We started in the hospital, and now we hold them. There's quite a large health clinic not far from Prince Charles Hospital, and there are some dietetic large rooms that they can use for things like dietetics. Do they use them for Daphne as well? Oh, public health. But it's not a hospital, it's still a health centre, but I suppose it doesn't feel too hospitally.
It's got a very different feeling to like.
It's got a different feeling to a hospital, even though it's still technically a clinic, but a large health clinic. What? Yeah, and it's on a good bus route as well, so we tend to use a large room there.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies.